you like my table?
I love your table.
Yeah,
I actually
it's
do.
good as
Really. I don't know what it is about raw materials, but I do quite like just unfashioned things, like just raw plywood or raw MDF.
Yeah, well, I had an idea once Jamie had been that I was actually going to get everybody to sign it. And then when we're all famous and stuff like that, we can, like some sort of rock star's guitar, we can have it hanging in like a local cafe or something like everybody, or hanging on my wall. It'd be some sort of fucked up NFT sort of thing anyway. How you doing this evening anyway? You good?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, you
good.
said you were cold when you came in. Is your house as cold as mine?
My house is actually as cold as yours, yeah, but that's not because my heating's broken. It's because all our windows are open and I love the cold. It's quite a strange thing.
Deliberately?
I quite like the cold. Like I would, if you put me in a situation where I had to decide whether I wanted to warm up or cool down, it would always be in a cold situation trying to warm up, rather than the way around.
That's a different thing. That's not the same thing. Existing in a cold house is murder. It's been 7 days since my heating's been on, and this is an old sort of miller's cottage, and it's just there's bricks, there's dry stone, there's plaster and everything, and it just. In the summer, it's roasting. In the winter, it's just Baltic, and you can't get rid of it. But
I do reasonably on that. I don't like it when I actually feel cold to my bones. That's borderline.
That's where I am right now.
I just go and stand in my shower for like half an hour if that's me.
So for what you guys can't see is we're sitting in my front room. And we've got an electric heater on underneath the table, and we've got a fan heater, and we only turned that off because it's humming in the background for the microphones. But it's fairly comfortable, I guess. Cold drinks aside. So I have got Alex with me for a bit of a selfish reason. Actually, I want to have a conversation with him about how one deals with the sort of everything from the imposter syndrome of exposing yourself online. Parts of your life online, right to the sort of self-worth kind of thing. We have a mutual friend that's copped a load of shit online for something that nobody can really give an opinion on because they don't know the ins and outs of it. And it got us into a conversation that basically developed into me asking him along here tonight. For those of you that don't know Alex, I am just going to ask him who he is and what he does. Over to you.
Nothing like an open-ended question, eh?
Yeah.
Who am I and what do I do? Well, yeah, I'm Alex. Where do I start? Lover of mountain bikes, drink way too much coffee. I love building things. I think I was trying to think of like a sentence that you could encapsulate everything about me in one thing, and it's so hard to do. But I do genuinely love building things, whether it's online or sharing things with people of interest and value. Love progress in like any sense. So whether it's mountain biking or it's, again, building something or helping somebody else make progress in mountain biking or anything, I thrive off that.
Do you like finished products, or are you somebody who's always looking at something and going, push a little further or build more? Do you like the process, or do you like to see the finished product and then move on to something else?
Yeah, I feel like I've got a lot on my table and a lot on my plate. And I feel like that guy, the guy in the circus spinning about 1,000 plates at once. That's what it can feel like sometimes. But I do tend to try and see things through to completion. So like whether it is building a new digital product online or I don't know what, anything, piece of content, a video. I do like the process. Like I like turning something into or nothing into something. That's what appeals to me about, say, YouTube videos. Like you have all this stuff which essentially is nothing, and then you turn it into a story or into a tangible thing that people love to watch.
Yeah, it's strange the digital thing, because it's still nothing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still just pixels.
Things. It's just pixels and like flying through the air and what have you.
Just zeros and ones.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you think that came from?
My love for building stuff.
Yeah, creation, even, I guess we could call it.
I've always had like quite a I don't know if you would call it a funny personality, but I've always been, if I get stuck into something, I don't know if it's like what you'd call like someone with ADHD would have or something like that. But if I find something I'm interested in, I go like 1,000% focused on it and like can't do anything else until that thing is finished or I find something else that is of interest to me at that level. It's crazy. I don't know if that is that what ADHD is, or is that what, like?
Well, my son has Asperger's, and that's
Similar.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you have. But it's a trait of that, and I know many families with kids that have got Asperger's, and it's it can manifest in like, you know, creative and productive focus. It can also manifest in not want to pull away from something and disappearing into so like my son will spend time on his computer games and he'll create stuff and what have you, and he will not be pulled away. But actually when he's pulled away and you give him another option, he'll get into that. So he can switch his focus when forced. But when he's on something that he wants to do, if he goes, right, I'm going to make this thing or do this thing, until you make him accept a different option, you metaphorically, you wouldn't see him for days, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a trait, but I think that can be a trait in neurotypical people as well.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know where else it came from. I'm just trying to think back down like the family line or anything where it's come from.
Did you do it when you were younger though? I mean, what was because you started, I know you started mountain biking at a fairly, you've been a racer and, you know, quite successful at that. And you know, I mean, think back to sort of school and what have you. I can't trace anything back to my childhood apart from all my faults, because I wasn't nurtured or encouraged at all to do anything.
I've always talk about the process of doing things. I've always liked the hard work that goes into making stuff. So like when I left school, I went straight into the building trade and was a joiner. So like did an apprenticeship in joinery, was told that I needed to get something to fall back on, you know, like,
yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
You know, or maybe I wasn't told that, but that was like kind of like where I was led. Like, let's just go and get something so I've got something to fall back on if everything else goes pear-shaped. So I did my apprenticeship, and obviously on a building site, like it's all about hard work, graft. And when you are the apprentice, you are just like you literally run around for everybody else doing stuff. I learned a lot of kind of valuable skills, but I never really gelled with anyone who I worked with on the building site trade, because they never understood me and I never understood them. They could never understand why, say for example, I would bring like my own food into lunch that was like prepared for me. They would always be like, why aren't you just having fish and chips? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? They could never understand it. And, you know, I could never understand why they would literally take all my tools and do silly things with them. Like I remember once they took all my tools and they glued them to the floor with like this like self-expanding foam, whatever. Yeah. They took my boots and they nail gunned them to the floor, and all this stuff kind of like made me, it was kind of funny, but at the same time it was a bit like, I don't really earn enough money from this. It's not fun. And you guys are making it even less fun. But through that, I did learn like hard work, like, and I enjoyed the hard work. I don't know what it was about, like the achievement of putting a roof on a house or building a house or whatever. I used to really enjoy that. And that, if I look back, that's kind of like what's come through everything. And that like the hard work in whatever it has been, seeing things through. My dad was quite entrepreneurial actually. He got made redundant from a job. He was a pest controller. Got made redundant, and then he started his own business and went down that road. And I kind of was quite inspired by that actually, because I've always loved people who just go their own way or create their own path. Like, and he was one of the people that first did that. Everyone else in the family has always worked for someone else. Or my mum was like a midwife and stuff. Yeah, and she loves doing that. Great at it. But she probably would never be the person to start her own business or anything like that. Whereas my dad was just like, I want to do my own thing, and he was pretty successful at it.
So what did he do?
He started his own pest control business.
Oh, right, okay.
So he got made redundant from a company, and then he just started up on his own. Yeah.
So you didn't follow him?
Funny enough, I actually used to work with my dad. So when I left the building trade, I worked with my dad, and I think my dad's bright idea or thought was that I would work underneath him as like an apprentice or whatever, and then over time I would take over his business and we would work together and grow this little like mini pest control empire. But it was kind of like the opposite, because I found working with a family member is so hard, because we used to live together as well. So if we ever argued or fell out on site at work, it would usually come home and then we would just be at each other's necks. So it wasn't really something I was doing full time. All I had in my mind was, this is just a way to make some extra money to fund me to go bike racing and do more of what I want to do. So yeah, we kind of just like went our separate ways after a few years. But yeah, it was. I mean, my dad's always been a grafter as well. Like he's another person who's inspired me. Like he's another person who just loves doing stuff. Like he announced like last year that he was retiring. And he was like, yeah, I'm retiring. And at the time he was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to retire. I'm going to sit back and relax. And I could tell a mile off what was going to happen. And literally a few months into retirement, I asked him like, how you doing? He's like, I'm actually really bored, because he misses like the whole, you know, getting down on his hands and knees, like doing what he used to. He loves the graft of doing stuff. I think I'm kind of similar.
I could generalize and say that people that work with their hands and that are creative, and especially people with entrepreneurial spirit and people who have their own business, that retirement story, everybody's got one of those or a couple of those in their pocket to tell you about somebody who's retired and then just gone straight back to it, or done that thing for free for their neighbours. You know, like my granddad on my mum's side was a gardener for years when he came out of the Navy, and he'd go and he'd charge, he'd have his roots and what have you, and when he retired, he lasted like no time at all. And then he was out doing it for free.
I don't understand I don't even understand the term retirement, because to me, retirement suggests that you're doing something now that you don't enjoy. So then, do you know what I mean?
You're shoving it to the side, you're like, or behind you.
Yeah, so I'm almost like, well, if you enjoy what you're doing, why should you have to ever retire? Like,
I think it's, I don't know this to be the case, but for me, I think it's something that's it's a pension related thing. Yeah. I think we probably, you know, every generation that's grown up, maybe, well, certainly the last 40, 50 years has sort of equated retirement with a pension. So the age of retirement isn't retirement age, it's pension age. I might be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. It's tricky, and I know what you mean about working with family. It can be incredibly rewarding. So I've done that as well. I won't go into it. I did it for all the right reasons. We did it for all the right reasons. But yeah, bringing it home, you know, trying to spend quality time with each other and that kind of stuff. So it's tough. And ultimately, we went our separate ways. And in a way, the relationship's never been the same. Be different with your dad, you know. It's tricky. So when you came out of there, what was that direction? Were you already riding bikes when you were doing that?
So I was already riding bikes a lot. I was already sharing quite a lot of stuff like on the internet. So it's like I've always loved sharing what I've been up to. And back then, mountain biking, the goal for me for mountain biking back then was just, I want to race. I want to race for a living. I want someone to pay me to go and race, and I want to do that for the rest of my life. That's who I always used to look up to, the people on the DVDs I used to watch, and like used to know that they were doing that for a living. So I would love to do that. So I worked towards that for a few years.
What year was that?
What year was that? I think between about 2008 to about 2015, maybe. I think maybe I'm getting those dates a little bit wrong, but it was around that time, and that's the only thing I'd ever focus on. So anything I ever did as a job or anything like that, it was always, how do I make this amount of money so it can fund this thing I'm doing? That's all it was about. And then every year we would use that money that was saved up like over the winter just to go racing for like 6 months or whatever, to Europe, to wherever, to go and chase UCI points to go and race, potentially go and race at World Cups. And I never actually got to World Cup level. I think I got about 18 UCI points, and you needed 20 back then to qualify to be able to go to a World Cup.
Oh, so you never got to race?
I never got to race a World Cup. I used to race international races quite a lot, and that was kind of like the stepping stone between racing like a British downhill national race and a World Cup.
I feel like your Maxis Cups and that type of stuff.
Yeah, and IXS Cups. So
IXS Cups, yeah.
I really enjoyed that. They were really well organised, met a lot of good people. So that was the focus for like that length of time. And then kind of, as time went on, kind of transitioned away from racing downhill and then started racing enduro mountain bikes. And then it kind of, like, to where we are now, I wouldn't say I've lost complete interest in the whole concept of racing. I still love racing, but I think my viewpoint on racing has changed a lot, and like what I feel my purpose is, or like what I enjoy creating or what I enjoy doing. And sometimes it is racing, but sometimes it's not. Like I genuinely just love going finding stuff that is unique, that maybe some people have never ridden before or seen before. I actually like making content that makes people think, holy shit, like, what are you doing? Like I love. It sounds so bad. And if my mum and dad are listening to this, my mum will probably listen to this. She listens to every single piece of content I put out.
Right.
And she'll be thinking, "What the hell is he going on about?" But I genuinely love going finding stuff that is like not like it's very calculated. You know, like it looks extremely dangerous, and it probably is. But it's very. I always find when you're doing something like that looks really dangerous, really exposed, like big jumps and big like gnarly features and this, that, and the other. The tendency is to be so much more calculated with it. Oh, you'll notice as a coach, like and it may look like someone is just a complete maniac who is watching from the outside, but the actual like calculation that goes into hitting something that is so technical and like is so different to doing just like a normal feature or something.
I always drill this into people. You know, it's not applicable to everybody, or you know, in the moment. But I always say, if you're going to have something, have a thought process.
Yeah.
You know, and if you need to slow down to put that thought process into gear and use it in whatever you're doing, whether that be a race as a full thing or a corner you're trying to negotiate, then slow down and put it in 100%. Because eventually it'll become your map. So it's less about the bike more than it is about that, I think.
Like I think in the last few years I've developed quite a good thought process for hitting and doing whatever the feature is, whether it's a mountain bike or what. If I don't feel 100% with something and I can't see myself visually doing it before I do it, I step away and don't do it. I'm quite humble in that fact. Like if I only feel like 78% ready to do something and there's still a bit of doubt, I'm a bit like, maybe this isn't the right time to do this. Whereas if I can see myself doing something and I'm like, I know exactly how it's going to feel before I've done it, I almost like, some people have almost accused me of being like not scared and stuff. I think anyone who says they're not scared of things is not being truthful, because I think fear is something you just learn to manage, which is something I've tried to focus on in the last few years, which has been a big skill to develop. Like, I think I read a book called, what was it called? The Chimp's Paradox by Dr. Stephen Peters. And I think he works as a psychologist at British Cycling. Work with all the athletes and stuff. And I actually went to go and see him a few years ago. I had a close family friend who, I don't know if I should say his name or not, but he was one of the doctors on the Sky road racing team. Okay, right, okay. I think he ended up getting busted for, some
maybe
bad
not say his name for now.
Some bad practices about performance enhancement.
Leave it in the anecdote.
Anyway, but he still is a great family friend, and he put me in touch with somebody at British Cycling, and he was a psychologist. And back then, when I was racing downhill, like I always used to think it was all about how skillful you are on a bike, and that was the only thing that mattered. And then when somebody opened my eyes to sports psychology and the mental side of sport, that kind of like opened a whole can of worms, because then I realized like it doesn't actually matter. You could have all the skill in the world, but if you haven't got the right head to put that skill into practice, it doesn't matter. So then I started going down that rabbit hole of like, okay, how do I become like some sort of a master of my mind?
Some Zen master down here.
I mean, the only thing that he taught me this book taught me, was the Chimp's Paradox is all about understanding your chimp's mind. You know, that the thing in your brain that's always trying to tell you not to do things, and it feels like it ruins everything.
It's evolution at work, isn't it? Like, it is that sort of adaptation or that protection on full sort of switched on.
And all this book taught me, or that I took away from it, was it's all about learning to manage that chimp, not try and not exist, pretend it doesn't exist or anything. It's all about just trying to manage it and understand it. So with that in mind, I literally apply that to everything. And whenever there's like fear present, I'm like, we're trying to analyze it and why is that fear? Like, what's going on here? And like I said, this has led to this whole calculated process. This bleeds into literally everything I do, whether it is a dangerous looking mountain bike feature or something that isn't dangerous at all, like doing this podcast. I mean, there's still some fear in doing this podcast. Like, you are putting yourself out there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Ready to be judged. So there's still, for me, that is still like a thing I've got to manage. Like, there's a chimp in my head now, it's going, holy hell, holy hell, holy hell. What are they going to think? What are they going to think? What are they going to think? And I'm just kind of putting it to one side and just letting it fester. It's fine. Just feeding it banana every now and again, But there is a very calculated process behind a lot of the things that may not look so calculated. And I'm fairly sure if you spoke to a lot of athletes at the highest level, they would say the same thing. Like if you see an athlete at Red Bull Hardline or Red Bull Rampage or anything that looks ridiculous, they have such a meticulous thought process that goes behind everything. And what you think looks ridiculous and like, why would you do that? They are so calculated, or most of them probably are so calculated, that it doesn't even cross their mind. They're that confident in things. Sure, you're going to get times when things don't go the right way. But for the most point, if a rider knows they're going to stick something, like they'll most probably stick it.
Yeah, I think this is why I did like half a dozen races in the early 2000s and then just thinking that it just ditched it. I've never been that kind of bring me the horizon kind of race sort of guy, like, and I don't, I can put things together in my mind and have a thought process like that, but I'll sometimes not ride my bike for a wee while and go up the golfway, and I'll drop into the first trail off one of the forest roads and I'll be like, Christ, my whole body's going, can you? Should you? Who's around here? What's the benefit? Am I trying to go fast here? Am I trying to go? So yeah, I mean, you can't do that when the beeps run out, like Fort William or whatever. You've just got to be present, like right there in this focus. And I just never had that. So I'm kind of in awe of people that can do that. And were you taking YouTube videos? Wait, when did you start doing the YouTube videos? Were you taking content when you were out at these races, and then, because you said it around the same time you started sharing stuff? So what did that look like?
It's funny actually. They always say you can only connect the dots looking backwards. Well, I started going back through some of my old Facebook videos, like in the last 6 months, and I was looking back to like when I first started posting on the internet, and it was back in 2000. I think I actually wrote a blog post today on this. It was back in 2012. It was 10 years ago. I started my first Instagram post was back when I was in New Zealand, and somebody told me to get Instagram, this thing where you could share what you were doing, and
shows you how technology's moved on. You're a veteran. Over 10 years, and you're a veteran.
It was like 3,700 and something days ago. That's how many days I've been consistently posting stuff on the internet. And anyway, I was looking back at like even back to the high school days whenever we used to finish high school. Literally, we'd finish school and there would be a bunch of us that would go and just ride mountain bikes every single night, every single day on the weekend, and that's all we would do. And if I look back then, the amount of videos I have, I've always had a camera, and I never thought, it never clicked when I was back then that why I was doing this or anything. But when I look back now, I'm like, Christ, like I've always had some sort of thing to document what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Whatever it's been, a camera or like a notepad, I've always had something. Back when I was racing, I didn't really do this whole YouTube thing or anything like that. I didn't really post any videos online. GoPros and being able to, film yourself as a mountain biker weren't really a thing. So I never really posted stuff. So the only content I would have is something that somebody would send me from the race. So it was a photo or a video or whatever. So I never really took that seriously. When I started racing, I think it was when I met Amanda, actually, we started taking YouTube seriously. When was that? I can't actually remember when I met Amanda. That's going to be really bad, isn't it? I don't know if she's listening to this, but anyway, I wouldn't say I taught Amanda to ride a bike. She already knew how to ride one, but when I met her, she decided to jump in with both feet and get a mountain bike. And I think I actually quite enjoyed documenting her progress as much as she sort of loved seeing it. So I just, like I said, just love seeing progress. So we would always used to go out and film little mini edits and just to show her progress. And it's built up something over time now where you can look back and be like, oh, look, that's where you started and look where you are now. I love that before and after kind of thing.
I've watched it as well. It's like, it's strange because I've known you guys for a wee while. Not you so much as Amanda, just hanging around, and I'd seen her about more. But actually, it's funny. I've my introduction to your Wolfpack channel was her struggle in riding challenging terrain, and now having watched all that, and now she's like, not she. I'm not singular, but you guys are going out, and she, I guess she is going and hitting jump lines and stuff like that, and then really kind of burgeoned into this confident. And it's really, really strange. And I've known a lot of kids who have raced. from the SDAs and stuff like that, say kids, 13, 14-year-old, and actually followed them all online over the last 15 years and watched them all become the people I see in the street now. And we know so much about each other by the people that chose to document that sort of stuff. Sorry for the interruption there, but I think it's important to say that is recognised from the outside. That's not just your it's not limited to your sort of vision of that. It does manifest.
That's good to see. That's good to hear as well. Like, it's obviously when you start creating stuff for the first, I don't even know how long it would be, but you feel nobody watches or sees anything. Like literally, it's almost like you're posting and sharing stuff to nobody. And you're just like, nobody's going to listen to this. Nobody's watching this, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest with you, when we first started, it was the same. I remember getting the first couple of views on one of our videos. And all me and Amanda ever wanted to do was to share. Wolfpack Adventures came about because it was a way of us sharing our adventures. And it started out as being about Amanda's progress on a bike. And then that kind of like morphed into, well, let's go abroad. Let's take the motorhome abroad. Let's go to all these different places and just show people what we're up to. And then it started to get traction, but it probably took a good year or so until people actually started to properly tune in, and we actually built like an actual audience base of people who kind of knew who we were. Then you start getting recognized locally, then like regionally. And it wasn't until a couple of years later we started getting noticed when we were away. And it was the weirdest feeling, like, when someone turns to you and says your name, or like, oh, how's the dog doing? Or and you're like, what? Like, this is real strange. And it's a bit more common now, but like back then it was so strange, so alien to me and Amanda. But what is going on with this? This is so strange. All we did was set out to just share like what we were doing as a way. It's almost like when you have like photo albums of families and stuff. It was just like our way of document what we were doing. The same with Instagram. Like we just treated it as like a photo album or a family photo album, or whatever you would call it. It wasn't like there was nothing to do with like, oh, let's see how many followers we can get. Let's see how many subscribers we can get. It was just
I think it's strange when my son turns 18, I'll need to go through my phone to find the embarrassing photographs, and then get somebody mail order to print them out and then bring them back so I can embarrass him at his party. People don't have boxes of photographs. I've got one box of photographs under that windowsill there, and I don't think any of the photographs are any newer than 1998 or something like that. I mean, there'll be a few in there, but I mean that's the way people are documenting stuff now, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I think I read one of your newsletters, and it's funny because that's another thing that joins straight on to what you're saying there is to document and not create.
Yeah,
I mean, you can create once you've got a following. If you see a behaviors and algorithms and what have you, but can you talk about that a wee bit? I mean, what? So you chose to document your life as Wolfpack Adventures. Was there? So when did you realise there that you were creating something, and it perhaps wasn't? Would there be a point you got to where you thought you had to create instead of just having that sort of flippant documenting approach, I guess?
Yeah, that whole comparison came across. I heard that from quite a successful entrepreneur called Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's someone I used to always look up to, and he always used to. His biggest thing is always talking about sharing content online, and he talked about this concept: document, don't create, and it was his way of overcoming like how to actually start. Because when people start and want to create something online, whether it is a YouTube channel or a podcast or whatever it is, they literally sit for so long wondering what to
trying
create.
To be deliberate about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, listen, I've been through the same thing. Yeah, I totally recognize that.
Yeah. So his whole thesis is that people don't want to see that. Like, people like just start documenting what you're doing, or show your flaws. Like, if don't overthink it. The creation side comes when, for me anyway, it came further down the line when I kind of had an audience base, and I wouldn't say looking at data, or it more came from like seeing what people were enjoying and kind of like thinking, right, okay, how can I create more content like this that people would like to see? Because there's definitely certain types of things that I share online that don't go down too well, whereas there's other things that I share that is really well received. And I only know that now because I've got so much data to look at and like see like, right, well, this is kind of like what people like. Maybe I should create more of this. But then there's that fine line as well that like you don't want to end up pandering to other people and looking at data and algorithms and stuff too much, or in it, because that's when it gets a little bit like, are you actually then creating, or are you just pandering to numbers and algorithms, and it's not the real you? So now I generally now still have gone back to that documenting thing. Like if I want to share something and I think it's valuable, I'll just share it, and I'll almost like post and ghost. I'll post it. I won't worry about what the algorithm does or how much engagement it gets, how many views it gets. I'll just post and ghost, and just I'm not too fussed. Like if I find it interesting, I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe some other people will find it interesting too and useful. But the documenting thing was just a way of getting over that hurdle of how do I start making stuff online? Like just put stuff out. Like if it's like 80% of the way there, just get it out, ship it. Just get it out there. Don't worry about perfectionism.
I guess there's pressure as well if you've got the channel as it is building, the time you're spending doing it, the resources, the assets, all that kind of stuff. You have to make a change to keep up with all that because if you see a bell curve of all those sort of your available time, assets, that kind of thing, then you're going to have to offset that, and that might be finance, it might be more time and stuff like that as well. So did you have a full-time job when you started Wolfpack? Were you employed or?
So when I left the building trade, I'm just going to jump back a second. Like I actually went down the personal training route. So
really?
Because I was so obsessed with training for mountain biking, I was like, right, how can I use this to my advantage and maybe this is something I could go down and enjoy. So I studied for a few years to become a personal trainer. I studied for a couple of months to become a personal trainer. It was, I think
a couple of full months.
Yeah, literally. You can get qualified so fast. So I did that again with that whole focus thing. Like that's all I was interested in: nutrition, fitness, training. Got a bunch of clients, worked at a couple of different places for myself, and quickly fell out of love with personal training. And I think it was mainly because I was putting so much effort into trying to help other people, and then kind of realized that they weren't actually interested in personal training at all. The people I was training were, like 30, 40, 50-year-old mums. And all they wanted was a place to come and exercise and just vent to you and chat and just have a good time and move. They weren't bothered about like what reps and sets you would get them to do or anything. Whereas back then I was like, no, we need to do this. We need to be structured in this way. And it would really frustrate when someone wouldn't follow my instructions in terms of like, they wouldn't, some people would cancel sessions at like 6 a.m. They wouldn't follow my advice in the 23 hours outside when I didn't see them outside of the gym. Yeah. And then they didn't get the results that they were looking for. So I was a bit like, do you know what? I'm a bit sick and tired of this. And plus there was all this, there's a lot of contradicting ideas and different opinions and stuff in the fitness industry, and I was just a bit sick of it. Like, there's so many different ways to skin cats in the fitness industry. Like, if you say, for example, if someone to lose weight, you can do that a million and one different ways. But when you've got one person who believes in their methodology, it's like, no, this is the only way to do it. And then if you don't agree with that, it just causes conflicts. And I was a bit like, I'm not interested in this. So I left the fitness industry and came across this thing called copywriting. And copywriting is basically writing words to sell things or getting people to take an action. It's like kind of like persuasive writing, but like for direct sales kind of thing. So you would see this you would see it anywhere, in magazines, literally everywhere. Anything that is trying to get you to buy something with written words, that's copywriting. So I came across that through some personal trainer mastermind I was a part of that I paid for, and this thing was helping me get more clients for my personal training business. So then when I left that, I was like, I can actually use copywriting I figured out how to use copywriting to get clients for myself. And then I was like, okay, well, if I don't enjoy personal training for myself, like training other people, maybe I can help other fitness trainers get clients with copywriting. So I did that. and then moved away from fitness completely and actually did copywriting for a couple of different clients online and worked as a copywriter up until maybe just like last year, really, which is, I wouldn't really class it as work. I was literally just go to a coffee shop, do a couple of hours work. And I was that person sat in Starbucks, you know, on the MacBook.
I've seen you through the windows.
Yeah.
I saw you in Costa the other day and I nearly came in and I was like, I'll just leave him. He looks hard at work.
So I don't really do copywriting anymore, but like I love going to coffee shops to do work. Like I just thrive off being in like a busy, bubbling place. I can't just sit at home and do stuff. I can't do it. So I go to these public places and I just get in this really weird focus zone to do thknow. So
you drink a lot of coffee because you've been in
God.
coffee houses, or are you in coffee houses because you already like drinking a lot of coffee?
I don't. Oh God, this is like another tin of worms talking about coffee. Like, I love the whole process of making coffee. even just the smell of coffee and being in a coffee shop and just everything that goes with a coffee shop. Coffee shops are now like the new modern bars, right? Like you go to a coffee shop.
Alex just became very animated there. He started raising his hands like coffee shops. And you. That's funny. Your attitude completely changed there. I should say that it's probably the back of 7 at night now, and Alex came round at a 5:30. I said, "Would you like a cup of tea?" So straight black coffee. Boy's sitting here with a cup of black coffee. I'm not going to go down that road. Let's go back. So you work in coffee shops. Weird focus, and you came out of copywriting, and
So and then from there, this is where I kind of discovered this whole internet landscape of like, oh my God, this is insane. Like as soon as I made my first like bit of money using the internet, I was like absolutely hooked. And then since then, I've done all sorts of different things online to fund my mountain biking before now, which is like most of my income now comes from content creation, from video creation, from riding bikes, from, you know, going out creating stuff. But back then it was more, how do I make money online, or how do I just make money in general to then fund my passion? And copywriting opened the door to that. And then that kind of bled into, I was working at it was an online training company that taught people how to start and grow Amazon businesses, like a business on Amazon.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And
it's like drop shipping and stuff.
Kind of, yeah. They taught a model that was private labeling, so that you would basically import stuff from China and you would create a brand around that and you would sell products on Amazon. So I was doing copywriting for this client. So I was doing a lot of their email marketing, and to get a better understanding of their clients and who they were attracting into their business, I was like, well, why don't I just start an Amazon business? Because then I can understand what the problems are, what the challenges are. So plowed a load of money and a load of time into learning how to start and grow an Amazon business. Got quite successful with that. Started selling products globally. So I think I've still got products selling in Australia, the UK, all across Europe, North America. And that's kind of like quite passive. I don't really do much on that. Mm-hmm. It just ticks over nicely. I'm not planning on continuing growing it. I've kind of lost a bit of interest in it, to be honest with you. But it just sits there. It just sits and does its own thing. And then from that kind of just merged into like now, where I've moved away from copywriting completely and Amazon stuff, and now just completely just focus on content creation, which is as silly as it sounds, like just posting videos online. But there's definitely more to it than that. Like I think maybe through Wolfpack Adventures and the growth of all the other social platforms, that's led to brands and companies wanting to put their products in front of our audience and work with us.
So do you think Wolfpack's the bedrock, basically? That's where you can refer people to for social proof, I guess?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, Wolfpack Adventures was mine and Amanda's way of documenting what we were doing. And I think for where I'm at right now, the content creation is almost like I don't want to say a selfish thing, but it's not like a me and Amanda thing. It's just an Alex thing.
Yeah.
So it's mainly stuff that's on Instagram and some of my own platforms, whereas Wolfpack Adventures has always been me and Amanda. So if somebody does want to partner with us and they want to be a part of Wolfpack Adventures, then sure, that's like our collective thing. But some of the stuff I've been doing recently has just been brands want they want access to the audience that we have, or the audience that I've built, which is just marketing, and it's just business, isn't it, really? But the Wolfpack Adventures, I would say, is the bedrock of where it's all. This is where it's all come from, and it still is. Like, it's still, like, it's not stopped. Like, we've been quite busy this last 6 months. Amanda's been crazy into CrossFit. Like, in this last couple of years, she's found, like, as well as mountain biking, she is absolutely hooked on CrossFit.
Yeah,
like, absolutely hooked. It's crazy to watch. It's really inspiring, actually.
It is. So yeah, I've known her since she started that. So that's so I've known you guys maybe a couple of years, maybe. Again, it's Amanda more so, and I've seen that journey as well, because she documents as well. And that last week's dynamite at that, from right now to whatever the conversation, like a conversation on a doorstep a couple of years ago, and I was dropping something off to her, and she's like, "Yeah, you should come to CrossFit," wherever it was. I was like, "Yeah, whatever, yeah." I go once or twice a week when I can make it, and now it's like, check out my handstand walks and like strict pull ups and stuff, and she's a coach now and what have you.
Yeah, she's buzzing. She's someone who's just gone so deep down that rabbit hole of she loves seeing people progress. She's just like, whether it's in herself, she loves better in herself. She loves, like, if she's struggling with something, or she wants to get better at something, and she knows that she can't figure out herself, she'll go and find, like, the best person that she can pay to help her. So she'll go and pay for a coach. She'll go and pay for mentoring or whatever. She's working at the minute now with a gymnastic coach, just because she knows gymnastics in CrossFit is a weakness of hers, which I think is quite cool. Like, she's, honest to God, like, when she comes home from coaching, like, if she's not coaching, or she's not eating or sleeping, she's literally just watching YouTube videos on how to do something. Like, always.
That's incredible. Yeah, because I've noticed, just as a follower, that the long form content is not coming through as much.
No,
and there's a lot more bite size stuff. Which seems to be doing better, actually, because you can do it more regularly as well, I guess.
I think times have changed a lot in the last few years, especially now with short form content. So, short form content being something that's less than a minute long, say a video, sometimes even like 10, 15 seconds long, that you usually watch on Instagram or TikTok, or I don't know what you would call them, what all these platforms. And it's just, I guess, people's attention spans now are so short.
Yeah,
I've kind of realized that, like, right, you need to capitalize on that. But I've almost trying to see things as a funnel, because the amount of reach you get and the amount of people that can see your short form content compared to long form is crazy. So, like, how I'm thinking about it is, if I use my short form content to bring people into our world, like almost like a funnel, and then the longer form and the medium the medium form and the long form content comes down the road, so like a podcast or a longer form YouTube video, where you can build trust with someone, or you can build a proper relationship with someone. Whereas the short form stuff's just snippets of, like, just to grab people's attention. That's all it's literally there for. But some stuff has gone absolutely crazy on there in terms of how many people you can put your stuff in front of, a message in front of. That's what I've written about this in the newsletter. Like, how, if you think about how crazy the internet is, it's borderline insane.
It's science fiction, isn't it?
It's like crazy. Like, I mean, think about 20 years ago. Like, if you had a valuable message to share with someone, you literally had newspapers or handwritten letters and carrier pigeons, like, literally. And even then, the message would just be passed down one person at a time.
Sure.
Until then it snowballed. But now, literally, you can put a valuable message online, whether that's, whatever format it's in, written, video, audio, and it has the potential to be seen by hundreds, thousands, millions of people. Like, it's hard to put into words how crazy the internet is. And I'm always fascinated with anything to do with the internet. Like, I'm just fascinated with it.
It's a weapon of mass destruction in some ways, But yeah, it is crazy when you think about it. I think Mark Twain said, "A lie is around the world before the truth has got its trousers on."
Yeah,
and that can be the internet as well.
I mean, you can use it for. you can use it for good and bad, right? I mean, like it just amplifies something that's, whether it's a good message or a bad message, right? And like I was saying, it's great, but it's also can be detrimental at the same time, in the fact that, right? I mean, if we talk about like putting yourself out in front of people,
yeah.
I mean, that's where you wanted to go with this conversation, wasn't it? Talking a bit about that. Like, I mean, like you are.
That was a seamless segue.
Oh, yeah.
Killed my segue there. Thought, just keep talking.
No one will notice.
Nobody would have seen that. But yeah, it's brought us nicely into that. So yes, a wee Mark Twain quote brought us into it. Yeah. So continue.
Yeah. So I mean, when we first started. It's actually quite embarrassing. Like when I first started sharing stuff online, if you when you look back at things you shared like 10 years ago, whether it's a video or whatever,
actually photographs and stuff like that. I mean, nobody likes to look at their old self.
Even videos. Like if you look at, like, I've got some videos on my Facebook page of when I used to put out like content for helping people with personal training stuff, like advice and tips and whatever. And I would literally watch it back now, and and you can see through someone's bullshit, and you can just tell someone isn't being authentic and they're not being transparent. You're right. Like, oh my god, you've almost like, it almost sounds scripted. Like
sure.
It's ridiculous. Whereas now I'm a bit more like, I maybe I just give less. I don't really care as much. I mean, I still care about. I don't care as much, but I also do care, if that makes sense. Like, but. In that respect, I don't have an agenda. I'm just I try and be as authentic as I can through my writing as well. I always try and write like I would speak. So if anyone does meet me, then that is literally what they're going to expect.
Sure.
But it's scary looking back at the videos that I used to post and how unauthentic I was, because I thought that's what you had to do. You had to try and put your round peg in someone's square box kind of analogy. Like sure. Yeah, but now I'm just like, you know what? I think more people resonate with just being who you are, and just I think people respect that as well.
I worry about that a little bit as well, but I got a lot of feedback just saying, yeah, it's great, listen to it. Like nobody's going, you're such a good interviewer or anything like that. It's just like, but nobody's going, here, Alan, maybe you should just like speak a little clearer and maybe drop some of that Central Belt accent. They're just going, quite enjoyed that. That was a good conversation. I give more of a shit about the sound quality than I do about like how I kind of come across. But at the same time, I'm kind of driving the conversation. So I need to be aware that I'm trying to pull on some threads, or when somebody just goes, just to let them go, ironically. Yeah. So yeah, I get that. I think people can see through that kind of structured, but I don't have any notes. I couldn't make notes, because see, if I had notes, I'd sound like I had notes.
Oh yeah. You can
100%.
Yeah, people can spot bullshit a mile off. Like you can just tell straight away when something is scripted or something is not quite like transparent or anything. Yeah, you can just tell straight away.
Do you remember when you looked? Did you see any sort of reactions to that content? Would you call that content, or was that you just trying to be a personal trainer online, but it wasn't really any kind of mission of?
Yes, that was me trying to be a personal trainer.
I'm
online.
going to be this thing.
Yeah,
this is what it should look like.
Exactly. Yeah, that I thought like this is what personal trainers do. Personal trainers have to share their expertise online. They have to come across as like the person that knows what they're doing and blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly how it comes across. And I literally now put my hand on my face and I'm like, oh my God, like what? How could you even share that stuff? And now I wouldn't even dream of sharing anything like that at all.
But did people comment on it? Can you remember?
No, not at all. Like
it was just out there talking to yourself.
You can go and watch it. It's on my Facebook. Like but like nobody would leave negativity. No one really cared, to be honest with you. Like nobody really cared. Like I still think actually sharing your, like putting yourself out there is still such a scary thing for a lot of people, which is why a lot of people never create stuff. I actually had a message the other day off a friend of mine, a close friend who races mountain bikes, and he messaged me saying, I'm thinking of starting a vlog, like a YouTube channel. And he was asking for some tips and stuff. And he was asking real simple questions like, how do I upload in 4K, or how do I upload in, high quality? And I was a bit like, doesn't really matter. Yeah. Like just it literally doesn't matter. And why did I bring this up? Because I've seen a lot of people come and go when it comes to starting stuff. And I think people have very different expectations of like what's actually going to happen when you put yourself out there, or why people don't even start in the first place actually. And it's that fear of being judged to start with. You know, like, oh my God, what are people going to say? Like, how am I going to cope with this? Some people actually fear dying. Some people actually fear being judged more than they fear actually dying. I've read that somewhere. Like,
I think that's probably...
Or some, I've probably butchered that.
On some level, that's probably... Like, well, when you're dead, you don't know you died, do you? But actually, you can live through the trauma of kind of being judged and thinking that the person across the street thinks a certain way of you. People have... The thing I've actually realised over the last few years that literally the thoughts that you have, that other people have of you, they have their own shit going on. Like, literally, they could not give a damn about your stupid videos and podcasts. They literally don't care. As bad as that sounds, like I don't think people care as much as people think other people do care, like, at all. And that's what stops a lot of people starting to begin with. And sorry, and you go.
Oh, go on, carry on.
So when did you experience your first sort of adverse sort of thing? The thing, I mean, not a specific post or something. Can you remember the sort of the time or the circumstance, or even the specificity of that kind of stuff?
I can't actually remember. I've had some negative feedback on things I've shared in the past, and a lot of the things, if I look back, people have tried to give me what they would class as constructive criticism, whereas in fact it just comes across as someone is nitpicking at the most tiniest details. Like, if you go and read my newsletter or my emails, it's not perfectly written English, and it's not supposed to be. It's just how I would speak. But people, it's almost like the human being is wired to find faults and wired to find fears and things that might go wrong. So they'll pick up the fact you've missed a comma out, or you've missed this out, you missed a full stop out. And I've had feedback before on real bitty things like that. And it makes me question things a lot. Like, why is someone bothered about that? Like, why is the bigger picture thinking on this? I have had some negative, I can't remember like when the first bit of negative hate or feedback was that I've had, but a lot of the stuff has come like from, what would you call it? What would you call it? I'm just racking my brains now.
Give an example, and we'll give it a name.
The things I've had before usually come down to a few things, and it's usually one, it's jealousy, like jealousy or insecurity, and that's just what I see when someone comments on my stuff in a bad light, or sends me a direct message to tell me something that is like not a very nice thing. Like, so when someone actually goes out their own way to almost tear your building down, is a better sense.
Sure.
All I can think of now is, instead of getting angry at that person, and I'm still a long way off like being the best person to manage my emotions, but I actually sit and question things and think, I wonder what's going on in that person's life for them to comment like this at what I've done here. Unless, I've done bad things in the past where, maybe it is right that someone has called me out on it. But if I've done seemingly nothing wrong, and then somebody like tries to tear my building down, I'm actually thinking, what is actually going on in that person's life for them to make them think like that? And that's all a lot of the time it comes down to, from my opinion, like either jealousy or insecurity.
Comparison.
Comparisons are, it's such an evil thing. Well, is it evil? I don't know. Like,
I wouldn't say evil, but I know where you're going. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because me and Amanda have these conversations quite a lot, because she uses comparison as I don't know if she uses comparison in a good way. Like, I don't know if it's a good way or a bad way, but she looks at other people who are around her in, say, CrossFit, and she, the people she sees as competition, say, she'll look at them and think, how can I get as good as them, or vice versa? Like, how can I get better at by comparing yourself to somebody else kind of thing. And I don't know if that is a good thing or not. Like maybe it can be used as a positive thing.
It can be. I think there's a phrase that goes around, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't know if you've heard that.
I've heard that, yeah.
So if you're, and I think that's linked to something that when I actually coach, I say there's a difference between inspiration and aspiration.
Okay, that's interesting.
So if you, so I'm a mountain bike coach, for those who don't know. So I could demonstrate something or do something well within a learning environment, which is inspiring. So people can look at that and I can give them a roadmap to be able to do that. And it's good to inspire and good for people to be inspired. But those people shouldn't necessarily aspire to be like me or to achieve that thing with too much veracity, because then they may fail or they may get hurt. You know, so if you're going to do some technical, and this goes for anything, I think, if an end product or an end skill needs a road to be attained, being inspired is great, but immediately aspiring with the wrong sort of motivation, and perhaps comparison falls in there somewhere, because you can still be aspired. That person can go, I really want to do that thing, but if they have that sort of toxic comparison where they can just, you know, and I kind of drop, you kind of lose it there in my world. But if they're looking at you and going, look at this guy in Bali, you know, doing this thing and doing that thing, and you know, it's like, where's my Bali? What's this asshole and his girlfriend up to? You know, running around doing this kind of thing, and that I think that toxic aspiration. That somebody, you know, they're not dedicated to the journey, they don't know how to start. I mean, you just talked about starting an Amazon business and doing that. I mean, you've worked for what you have, and you're incredibly focused, incredibly hardworking pair, actually, you know. So I wonder if it's all mixed up in that a wee bit.
Maybe I don't think people. Like, I don't really share too much about what goes on unless somebody sees something online or I have a conversation like this about someone. There's a lot of people that don't actually know what I actually do. They just, like, for example, when I was back copywriting, the amount of questions I got from people are like, people saying like, what do you actually do? Like, I literally just see you sat in coffee shops. Like, what do you actually do? And I secretly quite liked people not knowing. I was like, oh yeah. There was actually a funny joke going around. There's a guy, Farmer John, shout out to Farmer John, who has a mountain bike park, and he built a mountain bike park, literally. The
original mountain bike park, almost. Yeah.
And he is such a good friend of mine. And the mountain bike park is literally 2 minutes away from my parents' house. And he's set up a running joke with all the people around near him that, like, I just sell sex toys online. And we have all these little funny innuendos. It's so funny. And it's so funny. And that's all he was always, every time he sees me, he's like, how's the sales going? It's so funny. Which is, like, I don't actually sell sex toys at all, by the way.
That's your Amazon, your dropshipping.
I spell the most
1,000 ramping rabbits at a time.
I sell the most boring products on Amazon. You're not even interested in them at all. They're nothing fancy. What example of a product I used to sell was a microwave wall bracket. So yeah, very far from what we were just talking
people
about.
Need to hang their microwaves. What are you going to do? Might as well be you.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of microwaves out there.
But yeah, what were we talking about then? So I was talking about Farmer John's and what was I didn't even know what the question was.
Well, we were talking about why people react in certain ways, whether it's jealousy, it's like a lack of understanding of the road people have gone to do, the lack of understanding, as we've recently seen with our friend I mentioned earlier, is they don't have the information, they don't have they don't know why you're doing or why one is doing something. Yeah. So that toxic sort of attitude, I don't think, it's not everybody, you know. It's a special kind of person that actually personal messages somebody. I mean, Jamie was talking about somebody that messaged him and he said, shit video, shit music, stupid name. And it's like, you're messaging me, like, you know I'm going to read it and you can see if read it. Why?
Yeah, this is one of them scenarios where, like, I wouldn't read into something like that, but I would almost, like, question it, like, why. What has led somebody, like, what is going on in somebody's life for them to want to message me that? Like, I actually don't have time to go out and message people negative stuff. I literally don't have time. I don't know where people have the time to do it. I don't have time to do it. Yeah. The amount of, it doesn't just take 2 minutes to write a message, and it actually takes so much longer to write a message to someone if you have to think about it, because it probably festers with you for hours, and that's just energy you could have spent elsewhere.
Sure.
Which is how I think about it. So I literally don't have any time for it. That's what I was saying about post and ghost.
Yeah.
Like it is what it is.
I don't understand like Twitter spats and, YouTube beefs and all this kind of stuff that goes around. I think, I've started to, I barely use Facebook anymore, but I've started to type like a positive conversational thing on Facebook, and maybe a page that I'm engaged with, like a Formula One page or something like that, and I put it all together and I go, fuck, I might have to respond to this. There's nothing controversial in it whatsoever. It's like, shit. And I'll walk away from it. And I've literally wasted 5 minutes of my life constructing a perfect, reasonable conversational argument with a small a, about why, such and such happened. And I get to the end, I'm like, I'm not hitting send on this, but I've got to, it's almost like writing a letter to yourself. It's like, I've got it off my chest. I'll just, and now I don't need to go back to it. And actually that's my attitude on Facebook now. And I'm doing that less and less and less now. I actually... sorry to run away with this. I actually wrote a couple of blogs about toxic ownership of the outdoors, I think last year. And I see quite a lot of that. So I know a lot of mountain bike content creators, obviously. It's just the circles I move in. And the trails... it happens with bothies, it happens in the outdoor, it happens with skiers and snowboarders and stuff like that. And I'll get to them eventually sometime this year. But there's people that have toxic ownership of things. And I know you've came in for a bit of shit like Jamie has, and countless other people about, going up and putting content out where 100 other people have ridden that day. And then we get to the that sort of, then it's going as far as to tag you and stuff, and they're sort of almost there using you to create content for whatever reason,
It baffles me. There would be a point years ago it would upset me. It would be the point where it would actually upset me, because I'd just be questioning myself, like, what have I actually done wrong? I've gone out here with good intentions to do this, and I've not gone out of my way to hurt anyone or anything like that. But now again, it doesn't bother me as much now. I just come back to that same point again. I'm just asking questions of like, okay, why has someone done that? And marketing, good or bad, is still marketing, right? Whatever. All right. I don't understand the toxic ownership stuff. It's going to be a question that's on my mind for a while. I don't really understand it. I understand. I can understand the side of the. I can understand both sides of the story of why someone may get angry at, me or some other content creator. Whether I don't even know if it must happen in other sports. It can't just be mountain biking.
It does.
It happens in every kind of sport. It must do. Same with you're talking about the bothies before. Yeah. Same thing. And I can quite easily understand why someone would get upset or angry or frustrated. Say for example, I'm just going to take a mountain bike trail as an example. If I knew somebody was digging a mountain bike trail in the local area or anywhere, and it was quite clearly obvious that someone was putting in like countless hours into digging this, what essentially is a work of art. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no way on hell I would go and just ride that, at all. Like, if you could clearly see it was a work in progress, I wouldn't even go near it, because I have a lot of respect for stuff like that. But when it comes to the point where you're on a public place, and trails are getting ridden all the time, like who calls the shot and who says it's okay to post a piece of content on a track or a trail? Is there like a red carpet that gets rolled out, or does someone who is recognized in a certain area have to go down the track first and get a video of it, and then it's okay for everyone else to post a video of it? And I'm quite open about this, and there's a video on my channel about this. I've had problems before at races with content and cameras and stuff.
I watched that again today, actually.
Oh, you did? Yeah. So that was, if for anyone like listening, there was a bit of confrontation and an international mountain bike race we had last year here. And it basically all came down to the fact there was no clear rules, and it was almost like there was a set of rules for some people, and then it was different for everybody else. And it didn't really go down very well with me. And I felt like I got attacked by people at race, people who were organising the race or like marshalling it or whatever. And it sparked this whole conversation and idea of like, why does this have to be? And it still is. Like I always question, like, if I post a piece of content on a track or at a certain location, like I actually do think about like, right, if I post this, what are the potential implications that are going to happen here? Because like as you get a bigger and bigger audience, I don't really understand if people know like what an audience does or what an audience is, because I feel that people just see that number. Like, let's just take Instagram for example, like 50,000 people, whatever the audience size is now. And I mean, how big is that? Is that like a football stadium size?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's totally intangible.
There's a lot of people. So I don't know if people's logic is like, right, if a piece of content gets posted, then 50,000 people are all going to flock this one track like the next day. Because I don't think that's actually going to happen at all. Like, I usually get a few questions of people asking things and commenting, but like, I mean, if you go back to that same track like the next day or so, you'll hear conflicting ideas of like, oh yeah, we just want people to go and ride the track anyway to get it running in and stuff. So then I'm thinking, well, why does it matter if I post a video on it? Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, nothing makes any sense. And again, I'm sure this happens or something similar happens in other sports as well. I don't think it's just mountain biking. Like you said, like the bovvy thing's a funny one. Like you can go, like for mountain biking, you can go on Strava, you can go on trailforks.com, and you can literally see a map of every single trail on the public hill that you can go and ride.
I think Trail Forks did for it, like before the sort of rise of your Andy McAvoys and your Street Pigeons and you guys and what have you. It was there and available on your phone. You didn't have to watch like a 27-minute edit. I think you're right. I think the other thing is that's where your audience is working against you, and you have. I think it's cool to attack somebody that's in the public
for sure
a wee bit rather than that. Not that you would ever know about it in the private message, but posting it on the YouTube comments and what have you. You know, there's that little, that evolutionary sort of thing, that sort of shot of adrenaline, that validation sort of thing that we all need. But I did a search for one the other day when I was thinking about talking to you, and so I'll not mention the trail, but it was a recently built trail. Everybody's loving it, and you did a bit down it, so you're probably right up there with the top 3 or 4 content creators, subscribers that have ridden it. You know how many videos for that trail they're online by like just mates out riding their bike that have got 97 views after 2 months. There's fucking dozens of them.
I bet there is.
Dozens of them. I remember I stopped recording stuff. We I think that I did that Blue Dune thing a couple of years ago, but when you had GoPro 4s and 5s, I went up to my pals and they said, "You're going to video Spooky Woods?" And I turned to him and goes, "That's what we need online, isn't it? Another video of Spooky Woods." And I was like, I'm never doing this again. Because I realised how kind of, without the audience and without the potential for, like you say, making a living or documenting progress, I was going, fuck am I doing this for? It's like 6 people. We're all going to get home. I'm going to upload it. All my mates are going to go, you uploaded that video yet? And they're going to watch me going down with no stabilisation. Like that GoPro rattle that used to go all the way down the trail. And I thought, what's the point? And that was the beginning and the end of my sort of aspirations. So it's not just you. Is other thing.
Just add to that, when we first started Wolfpack Adventures, going back 4 or 5 years, me and Amanda went out riding near my parents' house in the Peak District, and we went to go and make a video on a bit of hill, and we posted this video online, and it got a lot of traction, but it also got a lot of attention. And we didn't know at the time, but we'd made this video on a bit of this hill that was, apparently it was like quite sensitive to, walkers and mountain bikers, that whole thing. And we got absolutely attacked online, like Amanda more so than me. And there was a I can't remember the name of there was like a committee of mountain bikers that came after Amanda. and they were copy and pasting these massive chunks of text on all their profiles, and and sending direct messages, and it was a bit like, it was really invasive. And in the end, I can't remember if we took the video down or not, or just turned the comments off completely and said, look, like, this is madness. And what annoyed me about something like that was the week previous, or the week after, or week previous, around the same time, there was another video that was published on the same bit of hill as me and Amanda had posted, from a group of riders who are fairly well known in the UK, like really well known, and no backlash, or it looked like no backlash at all. So that, again, that kind of frustrated me to the fact that, like, well, why do we get attacked, and yet someone with bigger profiles don't get attacked, which is what this whole video at the EWS race was made for. Because I was so frustrated with, why is there not a set clear rule for every single person that everyone can understand and know? And it's the same with what happened in the past few weeks with the trail around here. Like, I saw with my own eyes on social media other people posting videos on that track. So then I was a bit like, okay, so as soon as I post something, I get absolutely attacked. So I was a bit like, okay, I'll take that video down. I'm sorry. Sorry I've upset someone. Okay. But then just kind of, it just still baffles me. Like, I don't understand because it's all public. It's all, no one has the right to say whether somebody, the only right somebody has, I guess, is, like, I was going back to that, the trail digger thing. So, like, so if somebody digs a trail, then there's definitely room for, like, etiquette there of, like, right, this person has put in all this graft, like, so you must respect that. And I can't even, I do respect that a lot. But when you see the same track plastered all over social media before you've even ridden it or posted about it, it's a bit like, well, what, but then it also, I don't know if it damages other people as well. Like, I don't know if people would see what happened in my instance and then would be scared to share anything around that area again, or, like, want to share anything in the Tweed Valley. It's a funny place, Tweed Valley, in the fact that it is one of the most popular places to ride a bike in the UK, right? Like, people literally flock from all over the country to come and ride it.
It's crazy when you think about it.
And I don't know what the actual goal is of the Tweed Valley. I mean, do people want people to come here? Like, as in, like, do they want to make it the mountain bike mecca of everywhere? Because I would think that would be a positive thing.
I had a conversation with Jamie after CrossFit.
Oh yeah,
the other morning, and he was, I was just chatting like we do about the latest things, and I actually said to him that you have to recognise your place actually in the culture, to the positive contribution to the culture of. Firstly, I mean, he hardly does anything in the Tweed Valley. It's his Sunday rides. If it's the Tweed Valley, he goes elsewhere now because he's kind of done it all. And but I said you have to realise your contribution to the culture of mountain biking, because if you have a good, because an audience isn't reach. Reach is reach. If you have a good reach and people are looking to ride trails, and they've got to come here, so you can look at it one way. Or one way in the negative, or you can be pragmatic about it. It's like, this person's come here and they're going to fuck up my trail, or our trails, or that trail, one's trail. Or you can look at it and say, well, they're going to come here. They're going to contribute to what is normal erosion from people coming here, and they're maybe going to stay overnight, and they're maybe going to get a lesson, and they're maybe going to go and stay at the pub and have and do all the things that the non-biking or the other parts of the community want. And some people will be shaking their heads and sighing at this right now, but I'm telling you, that is the thing. Yet, like, Historic Scotland and Visit Scotland and all these, with the best of intention, everybody that wants to bring people to Scotland mountain biking has got such a low budget and needs such a broad brush that they need the contribution of quote unquote amateur sort of content creators and stuff like that to do it. And I don't think it should be underestimated. That's my kind of, it's not the end of my thoughts on it, but I think it's legitimate.
100% legitimate. Like, I don't want this podcast to be like it's not just, it surely can't just be the Tweed Valley or anything like that. It must be like a global thing with any sport where there is like a passion in a certain like condensed area. So like I can imagine the same thing happens if you go to places like Vancouver or Whistler or anything like that, where it is very popular and very world renowned. They must have like some areas that people feel very protected over for the trails that they've dug, the hard work they've put in, and things like that. I can imagine it's the same around the world.
It is. So I very rarely go off on any sort of mission without doing a bit of research.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this isn't like the news. I use the Tweed Valley as an example because I live here and it's where I ride, and my friends live here. But it's by no means toxic or unique. So funny you bring Canada up, because I went to a couple of cycling forums. I've been in some pink bike things and what have you, and there are pages and reams and stacks of threads about, you know, just practically naming people about you know, doing stuff like that. So it's I think some of it's valid as you recognise, and it would be silly to sit here and think that everybody that was right thought they were right were right. But there is an element of selective outrage, hypocrisy, and just non or ill thinking on everybody's part, I guess. And I think what it's doing is it's creating a conversation that we probably really shouldn't be having. We should be all getting along just a wee bit better.
100%.
Because I think with somebody like you, I'm in awe of your journey and what you've made for yourself. And you know, it's you know, I'm sure whatever you're doing next, you'll just build on that. But it must take a toll, because all of that funneling in to one inbox or one channel, there must be times when you've just went, oh, fuck it, I'll move on to something else. Because you seem to be able to do that, as focused as you are. You seem to be able to pick something up and drop it as finished, or at least put to the side.
It's funny you bring up that whole like funnel into notifications and inbox and stuff. I've turned all my notifications off on everything now on my phone. Like I don't have any notifications on, nothing, because it just got too overwhelming. Like if you have all these social media apps, Messenger, emails, and it's all pinging you, like it's liberating turning them off. Like if you turn it off for a week, just see what happens. Like your mind is free to think about other things, and you only check your message when you choose to check them, rather than, oh, my phone's vibrating, I need to check it. And to me, that's been really liberating, because I don't know what it's like for other people. Like I have a fairly big audience and reach, as you would call it, online. But there's people out there with like 10, 15, 20 times, you know, bigger reach than me that I know. And I always look at them and think, how did they deal with it? Like because there's people in the mountain bike space I follow who have had like hate for doing things and been called out for certain things, for posting specific types of content in specific places. And I've been one of them people who trolls through comments wondering, like, how does this person deal with all this stuff? Like, always. I don't do it anymore, but I've done it in the past, and oh my God, like, it's crazy. So I've turned all my notifications off. I find that helps me a lot. Maybe my own mental state. Because you know, it's funny, because as extroverted as I may come across now, like doing all these videos and this and putting myself out there, I'm actually a very introverted person. Like if you ask Amanda, ask a lot of people, there's some times where I will literally just zone out and be like, I don't want to be around people. I want to be on my own. And I'm quite comfortable in my own presence, like just on my own. And I think you were in the gym the other night, weren't you?
Yeah.
So we did the CrossFit Open the other night, and the other night was the third and final workout of this thing. And for the past 3 weeks, we've been going to the gym as a big group of people, and you basically get judged by people, and like you have a judge and you do a workout and you get timed and whatever. And I walked on Friday to this workout, and there was 20 or 30 people there watching. And straight away, as soon as I walked in the gym, my brain just literally was like, nope, we're not doing the workout today. I can't do it. And it was because there was a certain movement in that workout, double unders with skipping rope. And because I know I struggle with them at the minute, I can do on a good day maybe 5 or 10 in a row, which is that's an amazing achievement for me. But I had this fear that I would literally be stood in front of 20 or 30 people trying to do these double unders and just failing miserably. And they would be trying to cheer me on and be like, oh, go on, Alex, go on, you can do it. And then in my head, I'd just be getting even more frustrated and like, I can't do this. It was funny, actually, when I went to go and do the workout a day later when it was quiet. Me and Amanda went into the gym and I was practicing double unders before the workout. And I got so frustrated with the skipping. I threw my skipping rope on the floor and the skipping rope whipped me in the face. And it was the ultimate karma. I had this massive red whip mark across my face. I didn't tell anyone that, but it was so funny because it was like, this is karma for you, Alex. Yeah. But when I went into the gym, I was literally the most, I don't know if probably insecurity was the biggest thing. I was like, I can't do this, which is really unnatural. But I recognised it and was like, this isn't right for me. I can't do this. So everyone went to the pub afterwards and I just went home. I was like...
Yeah, I was wondering where you were.
Yeah, I went home just because it wasn't because I was upset or anything. I just literally decided like I would just want to be alone for a bit.
It's funny, isn't it, how that's analogous to those YouTube comments or something like that, where the vast amount of people are cheering you on.
Yeah.
Regardless whether they know you can fail, it's potential that you'll struggle or fail. Doesn't matter what it is. Same with the YouTube. It's like they know that they're the majority, but there will be people that don't like such and such. But it doesn't always affect what you do. It's like if we all stand here and cheer, let them know that it's okay to fail. Then it's okay to fail, right? And you're like, no. Yeah. No, if we comment positively, what we'll do is we'll outweigh the decks, and that'll make them feel better, right? And you're like, no. Yeah, on you go.
But for some people, it works the opposite. Like Amanda in those workouts, she wanted people to cheer her on. She wanted people to scream at her. She wanted people to literally shout at her and tell her to pick the barbell up when she was like feeling like she was going to die, because she was obsessed with like getting a better score and just bettering herself. Whereas for me, I would have almost just taken it the wrong way and just stopped and just been like, I'm just going to drop the barbell and we'll do it another time.
Right, we're back. We had to stop for a phone call there. So, Amanda likes people screaming at her for motivation.
Yeah, so we were just talking about different ways. Like, she would never have walked into the gym like that and had the same reaction as I did, just to want to not do the workout or anything. I don't think anyway. Maybe she would say something different. I'm not sure. But at that time, I was like, nah, I'm too insecure to do this now. I'm not feeling it.
I'm by no means a quitter, but I find it. I believe this is a quality of mine. Right, it makes me quite fractal, but it's a quality of mine. I've always known when to stop. So like I said with the racing earlier, I've never been kind of like, yes, bring the mountain to me kind of thing. When I was younger, I hung around with a lot of people that did recreational drugs, lots of them, and I did lots of them as well. And a lot of them went to the needle, and I never did, because I always knew I'd be like, I'm not doing that because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, all my brain says, well, I couldn't get addicted, or I could, I because I would just overcome it. And then the proper part of my brain would go, no, you don't know that.
Yeah.
They would, I'm really exposing myself here. Car thieves, never got on a stolen car. All my mates did. I've always, so that actually taught me quite a lot when I was younger. I was always on the edge of just fucking it up so badly. And I've actually carried that bit where it's okay to say, do you know what? To hell with it. I'm just going to park it and get rid of it. But what it's done is it's kind of stunted my sort of that the Amanda in me, where if people scream at me enough, we'll outweigh the comments again. We'll cheer him on, make sure he knows it's okay to fail. I'd just be like, for most things, I'm like, I just not do it. And they go, oh well, you're not giving yourself a chance. I'm like, don't want a chance. I'm done with it.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
I was like, it doesn't bother me at all in the slightest. But then I would come back like the next day or the following day when I was feeling in a better mental state, or it was a bit quieter, and it was fine.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I remember being on my best ever Glentress 7 once. I was like an hour and something left, and I had like 6 laps. I was like, I feel great. And then this like tiny little girl came past me on like a 26-inch Specialized Epic. I'll never forget the bike, like, you know, like her mum or her dad's old, like, amazing bike from like 2006. And she was rocketing past me on the climb, and she clipped me and knocked me over, and I fell over and I hit my ankle, and I rode for like 10. And I thought, I'm okay, but I thought, fuck this, I'm done with this. And I went down, got in the van, went back home, and Andy called me at 4:30 or 5:30, whatever it was. Goes, I did 8 laps. Where are you? I says, I'm sitting like watching, I don't know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I've been home for an hour and a half. He's like, what? And I was okay with it. I'm like, yeah, well done, mate. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's horses for courses, isn't it? I don't like things affect me like I used to.
I'm the same, exactly the same with a lot of stuff. Like, do you know what? One thing that used to turn me off racing, and I used to always let my, like, the first or second practice run of a race, that would dictate how my weekend would go off the first or second time of riding a track or practicing a track. Because if it went bad and I didn't feel good on the bike, that would literally carry through the whole weekend. Now though, when I understood that, kind of learned that, right, okay, don't let the first practice run dictate your weekend. Just build on that. Always accept the first one is going to be crap, and then build from that. But then that kind of turned into this mentality of like, I don't know if you would call it humbleness or not, but I'm fine with walking away from things. I'm completely fine with it. If, like I said before about doing big features and stuff like that, if I am not 100% feeling something, I'm more than happy to walk away from things.
I think it's a skill.
It is a skill in itself. In anything, I think. If something isn't quite right, I think it's a skill to walk away for sure.
So again, people who listen to this know they've heard this from me a million times. It's a quote from an old Robert De Niro movie, actually. And I use it all the time in leadership and when we're trying stuff out in the trail. Wherever there's a doubt, there is no doubt.
True. Yeah.
You know? So that works for think again or forget it.
Yeah.
You know, but never go in. If you're saying that to in your head, never go in like half cocked, if you like.
Yeah.
You know? So if you've got doubt in your mind, there's obviously something going on. So there's no doubt that there's something going on. So you need to either reevaluate and what have you. You know, it's and we're back to that thought process again, which is really, really valuable. And you know, I used to be terrible about like kind of not about failing, because I've always been okay with walking away with things. It's the perception of failure.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's just a human thing. I don't even think that's me. I think that's everybody, for most people. Even if you can do that thing that we were just talking about, most people would have the added pressure of people seeing that happen. And that's what bothered me. See, that doesn't bother me. It used to. But over the last couple of years, I've felt like it doesn't anymore.
Building in public has been a big thing for me for that. So I don't know if that builds resilience or something, but again, sharing stuff with other people on the internet, I don't know if that almost builds a wall up as well. And the fact that like you go so far down that rabbit hole of building in public. I wonder if there's something inside your brain that's like, Christ, I can't let these people down now, so I can't fail. But then some of me is almost like, do you know what? I could quite easily walk away from all the stuff I've built with, I wouldn't say regret, but I could walk away from things that I've done in the past and be completely fine with it. Like, okay, cool. Now let's move on to the next chapter.
I guess it depends what you're giving them. With the greatest respect, what you're doing is not life changing for anybody.
Not at all.
You know, it could be described as like recreational, which I think it is recreational. I don't think that's offensive to you. Well, you can tell me. You know, it just, but that weird feeling of obligation is strange. I have a story about that almost ruined somebody's. Like, I'm not going to mention it. The situation is way too specific, but this person. So this person could not walk away from what he thought was an obligation to people, ethically, partially financially, from a venture. and there was no reason practically or actually financially why he couldn't do it. There was no reason that anybody would have turned around and said, that's a terrible thing you've done. But ethically, he thought, I have an obligation to these people. I know this sounds really, really sort of, silly because I'm not given context, but he didn't. And he actually paid for that quite a lot, financially, reputationally, with other people that he didn't think he was obliged to. And it actually had really bad ripples, and I actually learnt a lot from that as well, where I always used the term, when you would talk about bad press or something, it's tomorrow's chip paper. When you used to get your chips in yesterday's paper, it's like everybody would read the paper and go, oh my goodness, and then the next person would get their chips in it the next day, and it was it's the thing that held their chips, and I think scaling your obligations, into things that actually will matter down the road to people, with your reputation or the retention of your audience or the retention of your reach, is really, really important.
I'm trying. Many people probably won't have noticed this or not, but I feel in the last year or two, there's definitely been a switch in the way I approach creating content. Like, there's a very methodical way of doing it now, in the fact that I do love I like the idea of teaching people or sharing my knowledge in a way that would help someone else. So sometimes, I'm sharing these short little videos to get attention, to get reach, to grow my followers, blah, blah, blah. But there's a much bigger reason behind it all, because I would like to take those people or a selection of those people to, say, an email list or somewhere off social media and teach them stuff and show them, like, for anyone who wants to learn more about, like, I don't know, building an audience or creating content as an actual lifestyle, a way of living kind of thing. I almost like try and create content now. This is where the whole idea of the newsletter came about, actually. It's basically scratching my own itch. So it was almost trying to, it's some catharsis going on. But it was almost like trying to help people that were like a few steps behind I was. And it was basically my way of sharing advice that would have helped me, previous me, a few steps behind me. It's like, what information would I wish I had back then? And that's kind of like what I've been trying to share. So if there are people that are interested or like would want to follow me on a deeper path, and that's kind of like the way I would like to go. And obviously there's going to be a large proportion of people that just follow me just because of cool content and they don't want to take it any further, which is understandable, completely fine. But I know there's a lot of people that asking questions of like, how do you actually build this lifestyle? How do you get to that point? How do you do this? And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can start creating things to help selection of people do that. Or what do you think about the longevity of that now? I think you're entrepreneurial enough, individually enough, and as a team, where if you needed to change as a team or individually and did that, you'll just do that. I think even anybody just listening to this will get that already. But as somebody, I'm not talking about myself here, as somebody with aspirations, right? To one you have inspired and now aspires to be like you, quote marks, or like something similar. Do you think it's a thing anymore? So you can use that platform and your guys' entrepreneurial spirit and the launch pad and your reputation and the people you know in the main sort of sector that you operate in, you're there essentially. You can kind of lily pad across the things. Do you think it's an aspirational model now for just general Joe? Mm-hmm. This could be another podcast in itself. Maybe this is something we might talk about. I don't know, but like I'm so passionate about talking about this topic in particular, because this is something I learned from that guy I talked about earlier, Gary Vaynerchuk, and he is obsessed about doing something that you love, like as in like you can literally make a lifestyle business or a living as such, literally doing something so ridiculous as like making. One of the examples he's used I've heard before, like you can literally make a living, say, making a blog and talking about Smurfs, or
Dr. Pimple Popper.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about earlier.
Like this is what I was saying about the power of the internet. It's crazy, and no matter how silly or unique you think your idea or passions are, there are going to be other people that like that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And the way that content is going now, in the fact that like it's the most valuable thing ever. Like we're sat in a bloody podcast, for God's sake. Like
I know there's irony.
Like just information. Content is the biggest thing, literally the biggest thing. It's not going anywhere, and anyone who is aspiring to,
we have to say inspire or aspire with hard first letters now, just to make my point.
It all comes down to what somebody wants. I mean, if somebody tells himself it's not possible, or maybe that people now I've passed that boat, and it's not for me, or it's not going to work for me, then I think you probably already made your mind up. But I personally think anybody can do what I don't like sounding like I'm sat on some pedestal, because I'm not at all. I'm just literally I'm nothing special at all. I don't like coming across like that. This is the introvert coming out of me. I'm just Alex. Like, I just post stuff online and share some things that hope the people find valuable. Or some people do. Anyone can do that. I love just sharing things I'm passionate about. And if I'm passionate about something, I don't get bored of it. And if I don't get bored of it, I can post about it forever. And if that happens, then I'm sure there'll be some people that are like similar mindset to me. I'm 100% sure of it. And anyone can be in the same boat. Like, anyone. I'm just like, yeah, I just love it. I love this stuff.
Cool. I reckon that's a good, positive, pragmatic way to end.
Yeah, for sure.
We could maybe do this again, actually, with that other stuff. But that's a great way to end. So I'm almost terrified to ask, because you keep saying platforms. Where can people find you?
Well, I guess probably the best place is, I mean, I'll give you two options. You can either go on YouTube and search Wolfpack Adventures, which is the main travel channel me and Amanda have been growing for the past 5-6 years. Or you can find me on Instagram at Alexridesmtb, which is just all the short form, cool mountain bike stuff.
That it?
Yeah,
I'm sure there's more.
There probably is.
You'll find all the arms and legs for there. All right, nice one, buddy. Thanks.
Good stuff. Thanks a lot.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the latest episode of the podcast. If you want to support me and help me make more of them, then you can subscribe on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also nip along to Instagram and follow me on Ravens Outdoor. And again, thank you so much for listening.